Okay, we're back in session from our short recess. I think we had maybe a little glitch with the recording for folks that are maybe watching on live stream, but that should be working correctly. And if it's not, please text me and we'll fix it again or whatever. Our next presenter is the sheriff, and Eric's along with him, so we'll turn it over to you, and you can just follow our little template or whatever you want to do, and then we'll have questions, answers at the end, and a closed session if you, real quick one if you need it.
Okay.
You can let us know at the end if you need to do
Okay.
that.
Well, thank you. I think this is a really good idea, getting some preliminary budget meetings out of the way before you really start digging in the weeds. I think it's a really good idea to sort of get that helicopter view of each county department and office. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm going to try to get right into this. I'm going to go through some things that we had jotted down, and then I also have your template here at the end to try to address some of those specific questions that you guys...
Just things that are applicable on there.
Yes, yeah, there's a couple that I definitely think are. The main thing that I want to focus on during this this upcoming budget, and maybe even in future budgets, is going to be manpower. That is our biggest issue right now. And going back to your template, you had asked about the things that keep us up at night. Number one is officer safety, the safety of our citizens. As far as internally, it's both retention and recruitment. I know Sonia has family in law enforcement, can speak to this. Mr. Chandler, I know you served in law enforcement and you still talk to, I know you have family still in law enforcement, so you understand that need as well. And this past year, the past couple years since I took office, we've made some really heavy investments in our equipment. And so I'm very proud of that, a lot of that, and I'll get into that a little bit later. A lot of that was done without county funds. And so we tried to utilize what county funds we had available to us to not put that burden on the county for the equipment, in the hopes, honestly, that going forward we could use that for staffing issues. Just to give you kind of a rough shot of what we do in the sheriff's office, obviously we answer calls of service and things like that, but one thing I think a lot of people don't realize that we do I'm using last year's numbers, and Chief Deputy pulled these for me. In 2022, we processed 2,495 just civil papers. That's your magistrate summons, writ of possession, different civil summons, magistrate summons and civil summons. We also served over 3,000 criminal were processed through our office. That's your warrants for arrest and your criminal summons where you've been charged with a crime. So that's something just to give you an idea. The numbers this year so far, we only have 3 weeks worth of January numbers, but we're basically on pace to do the same thing this year. So it's not necessarily going up or down. Let me come back to this. So getting specifically into some of our staffing, some of the ideas that we have going forward is currently we have the county divided up into 6 patrol areas, 6 zones. And we have 6 deputies assigned to each shift, so there's 1 deputy per zone. That includes a sergeant who is the shift supervisor. And so in addition to his supervisory duties, he is also entrusted with serving an area and answering calls just like his subordinates and the deputies below him. We think that we would like in the future to see maybe that supervisor to be freed up to actually supervise the county and supervise his subordinates, rather than also trying to do that while also answering calls and serving papers in his area as well. We think
the supervisor's in covers one of those areas at the same time.
And we have a sergeant that supervises the shift and a corporal who is the secondary supervisor, but each of them are assigned an area.
Have their own zone, okay.
Have their own zone that they're required to cover, which means that if at any time you have a call that would require more than 1 deputy, then you're pulling somebody from an area, which means that area is now left uncovered, whether it be the supervisor or if it's something really serious, we just try to get the closest one. If it's something that maybe just requires a supervisor, not necessarily something very hot or serious going on, that we can just pull a supervisor, but no matter who's coming to help, you're still pulling a deputy out of that area. So again, you divide 454 square miles divided by 6, cutting out the square mileage of the city of King. That's how many square miles each deputy has to cover.
Warren Cove is a zone too?
Yes, Warren Cove, we do provide 24/7 coverage inside the town of Warren Cove.
Jeff, what is
By contract, right?
That's correct.
you know offhand what your priority, your average priority one response time is?
I don't have that offhand. I could try to pull that if that's, I'd have to get with our communications and see if that's something we would, if you would, I know what you mean by terminology, priority one, you're saying anything.
Urgency.
Okay. Let me make a note to try to, I'll get with you.
What's the average?
Yeah.
Would that be better question for us to ask the 911 people when they come?
Well, it could be, but it depends on,
Be relative on your staffing.
It
that's
is,
available, whether somebody's in custody, whether there's an involuntary commitment in place, whether somebody's injured and out, sick. There's a lot of variables there when you've got 6 areas and 6 officers. So it could affect those times as well, but I don't know what they would be without pulling the numbers.
What I'm trying to do is, I really try to help you. So, using industry standards, and obviously municipal police and sheriffs, it's a little bit different, but it's not that different. So I would think that that in itself, depending on what that average response time is, and I can just, I'm just figuring in the head just from experience, knowing 6 zones and, you got a sergeant, a corporal pulling their own zone, and then just normal calls for service and your different duties. And then how curvy this county can be, driving safe to get from point A to point B. I'm just guessing your priority one response time is probably not that good.
and it would probably be different depending on what part of the county you were in. It's, if you're in the southern half of the county, I think it's a little more easily traversed than the northern side of the county, so I think.
Right, but the people that live in the northern part of the county, they don't care.
Absolutely, and
they
deserve the same coverage.
I'll tell you one time they come quick is when I accidentally hit the 911. Oh, man, they're gonna be here.
Right.
They're consistent about that, for sure.
Right. And so basically, the main point of that is just we feel in order to adequately, and it would cut down on response times if we were able to have those positions there, and then also just reduce the liability on the county as far as having the supervisors being able to be in a strictly supervisory role instead of also having to juggle carrying their own.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, that I've noticed since I've, been on the board, I've been able to actually talk to a lot of different people. It's throughout the whole county. Like you got a department director, say of HR, and they got an assistant HR director, and then they're busy doing day-to-day stuff instead of looking at the big picture. It'd be almost like when you're chief deputy, spending time out there answering calls for service, for 8 hours a day, and then for another 2 hours a day, take the work home with you and have to try to plan. So yeah, that's a big problem. Not having supervision that's available to supervise and look at the big picture.
Thank you. And then another part that goes along with that, not only is the 6 zones, 6 officers, but as far as the supervision and everything, but also if we have somebody out due to injury, FMLA, we've had deputies. Obviously, it's a dangerous profession. We have deputies who are out. We have deputies who are having kids who go out on FMLA, and there's nobody to supplant that. So we think that would also aid there. One thing, and I don't have really any specific numbers on this, to be honest. I just sort of want to bring this to the board's attention and kind of poll the board. This is something that we had talked with Shannon and Amber about a while back, and they may not remember. But a lot of different agencies are utilizing, they're basically hiring employees and then sending them to the basic law enforcement training. We don't have the positions to do that. And so that is something that we've thought that if positions were added, we could utilize those positions as well to free up maybe the ability to give somebody some incentive to want to come here. We have folks, I know you were talking to somebody very recently who they want to come here, but when somebody's offering to pay for them to go to school and we're not in the same boat, it sets us back a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, I'm used to allowing overhires
Okay?
for, to pay the employee to, you're on the payroll and go to BLET. And then because typically you already know you're going to have turnover.
Yep.
So, this way, we always would do so many overhires a year based on an average. So when we did have a resignation or termination or retirement,
Okay.
they're ready to go. They're already trained. They're probably even sometimes it worked out that we actually had extra people on the road that we could, do some special stuff. But, nowadays it's hard to do that. But
How do you-
I'd be willing to look at that.
How do you overhire when there's a shortage of
It's a
humans?
budget term, so what you do is you put the money in the budget. It's just like,
Okay.
so you don't have, you may not have that authorized position officially, but what you do is you do an overhire to allow them to get to the academy and to get into field training, and then 9 times out of 10, you've got an opening. And if you don't, I think we keep, we're not gonna lay them off and let them go.
Okay. Well, and honestly, that's interesting that'd be something that.
See, the
definitely be
big
interesting.
thing is, and I'm a firm believer in this, is, I don't know what your sworn staffing is right now, but let's just say 50. So if you have 50 deputies, but you can only constantly fill 30 of them, there's no sense in giving you 5 extra positions so we can now have 55 sworn and then still have, you know what I'm saying? To me, it doesn't make sense. Let's just play like it is. And that's a good problem. If we can get to the point to where, hey, we got 4 overhires that, man, I don't know where I'm going to put them. But I'm willing to do that.
You guys have to be creative to stay staffed these days.
we
So
are, yeah.
I think this board will be open to any creative ideas you have that you want to propose.
Well, and that's something, honestly, that I would definitely be interested in exploring, so going forward. Okay. A few other things, any other questions on that? Just a few other things. This is just looking ahead at the budget, and I know Shannon and Amber are going to have this on their radars as well as the finances. We have recently implemented our body cameras, so we are going to have that reoccurring cost now that's coming along with that. One thing we've also looked at, we currently don't have in-car internet. We don't have that capability. We utilize hotspots around the county where our deputies can do their reports, send the stuff into our
Have air cards?
Do not. And so that's something that we're looking, I think it'd be good to have the SIMS card, not only to be able to utilize it for reports that we're doing now, but now we have the body cameras. We're also, whenever they come in, whenever the supply chain says we can have them, we bought in-car cameras. And so to have that ability to go ahead and just basically download to the cloud simultaneously. The other part along with that is the state has really been pushing paperless everything. So we utilize several different platforms. We have one, and they all have a different login, so you know how aggravating that can be. Remember all those passwords. You have one that is nothing but your warrant system. You have one, and now we don't necessarily use this or have it in the past, but there's another for e-citation, which is just for writing citations instead of using the books. So some other things that some other agencies use, but I don't know that we would necessarily would. It's like the e-crash system, instead of doing the DL-349 to do a rec report. Now it's all done online. We don't necessarily do that, but I think it shows the trend that the state's going towards is everything going pretty much mobile. And so we think, looking forward, and again, I don't have numbers on that right now. That's something we'll talk with the manager in finance about. But I think it's something that we're going to probably at some point need to look at doing it probably sooner rather than later.
But the in-car internet?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, a lot sooner, I'd say.
I mean, you all do need air cards. I mean, that should be a priority. But so in dealing with, if we can get you the air cards, and then with your reporting system, so how? I mean, are you sending? Are you so? You know, if I'm a deputy and I pull over and I type my report, I hit send, and then it goes to the sergeant. And then that sergeant reviews it, doesn't see any errors, so he's not going to kick it back. So then he hits send, and then it goes into your record management system. No.
No, and you've stole my thunder. I was getting to that here in just a minute, but we'll go ahead and address it now. Now's a good time to bring it up, and I'll let you.
Unfortunately, with the lack of the internet in the vehicles and the records management system that we currently use, the modules aren't set up necessarily to do it in a mobile format. And so our system that we're currently using is probably outdated. The officers are opening a Microsoft Word document, creating the incident report, going to find an internet source to email the document to their supervisor, who in turn will review it, who in turn, once it's approved, will email it to an county email address that's tagged to a photocopier that prints out a paper report in the office, at which point the records management person then finds the piece of paper and has to key in the data into the records management system at that point.
Folks, we can't have this. I mean, this.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, we gotta streamline this and fix it ASAP.
This is.
So with that said, we have met with our current vendor to see what improvements can be made with our current vendor. I think that's fair. We also made it clear to them that we're looking at other vendors.
Spillman you're talking about?
Spillman is our current vendor.
Yeah.
They were down last week, and they're coming back in a couple weeks to do a demo of basically an upgraded version. The version that we are currently using, I think, was implemented in
It was upgraded in probably the mid-2000s,
Yeah.
probably about 2015, 14, 13, somewhere in that range probably.
And so there's a bit of redundancy there, we feel like. And so we are looking at different options, meeting with different vendors to see what the capabilities of, A, what we have now, B, what we're looking at. And this is not a next month fix. This is something that could be as quick as we hope. We want it as quickly as possible, but it's definitely probably a midterm fix. Maybe not something that is done, right now. But we do think it's important to do that. And also, I would add, with the increase in that technology, if that were to happen, I think that would definitely streamline our office. It would help. It would help our records management ladies up front to also be able to do other things, because reports isn't the only thing we do. We have gun permits. We have the civil papers. What I say, the 2,400 civil papers that we had to process last year. In addition to the phone calls, they're the ones picking up the phone when you call the office. And so we think this would really cut down on the redundancy. It doesn't. If we were to go to one of these mobile type products, which I think is where we're headed. And let's be honest, we
got to.
We need to.
There's no
let's
choice. We got,
ASAP, yeah.
It would not. I don't believe in our discussions with all the vendors. It doesn't really put any more burden on the officer as it is who's in the field. They're already keying that in. It's just it's being keyed in 3 more times.
Well, but not really. I mean, because if you get with the current times, there's a lot of stuff that's going to pre-feed.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pull up a BNL and want to do a BNL report, and then you type in an address, and so names start popping up, if they're, if they've been victimized again, or if they've been a suspect. I mean, you still got to read to make sure that, you're not, using outdated thing. But, I used to love it. And then you get to the point, you just hit a certain key, like for traffic citations. It'll speed up the process dramatically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't see how there's any additional work for that.
Well, there's two things about this. First of all, we're getting ready to do a big internet expansion in the county that's going to increase fiber and wireless capability in the north end of the county. And then we're working on something else we might talk about on the 13th of February at our next meeting that might also facilitate this process if it. But we're really interested in technology across the county, not just yours, but especially yours, though, with
And
getting
that's-
that stuff up to date for safety purposes and everything else.
And that's
I'll
another.
just jump in on and do the questions instead of
I
saving
can
them
see
for
my
the-
time to bread and you. What y'all want for lunch and I'll go get it.
One thing too, I'd like to have a conversation about Spillman, whether it's open or closed session, I'm not sure. Maybe save it for a close initially, but about the Spillman system versus other options and so forth.
Anything I missed there, do you think of? Okay. All right, I'm gonna jump down and let Eric speak on some things. This is specifically dealing with the jail. The state is changing their certification process, and he's been an instructor and worked with sheriff standards for many years, and so I want to let him explain it. But this also goes back to showing sort of what you were talking about with overhires and also just staffing at the jail. I'm going to let him handle that.
Our certification is regulated by the North Carolina Administrative Codes. They determine how an officer meets that certification requirement. Come July 1, 2024, and fortunately the sheriffs were able to get this pushed off where it was going to be 2023, but July 1, 2024, no person can be hired on the road or in the jail prior to certification. And they're not allowed to do any function that requires certification. So currently, the way things are hired in the jail now is we usually would hire you, go through the application process. We are now required to do the psychological testing now, and so that's done. And then somebody usually works in the jail for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and we send them to school. It kind of gives them that foundation. Is this really what I want to do? You never hear anybody in elementary school go, I want to be a jailer when I grow up. So they really don't understand what it is other than what Hollywood has convinced people that it is, and it's nothing like that. And so this 3 months in the past, 3 to 6 months, has given them an opportunity to get their feet wet before we invest too much money, and then we send them to what's called DOCC, or Detention Officer Certification Course, through the local community college. Well, come July 1, 2024, that is no longer allowed. They have to be certified prior to entering the jail. We did ask them, could they shadow to at least get a taste of it, and we were told no. Something as simple as handing a tray to a certified officer to hand it to an inmate, we were told no. Handling the tray is a certified function. As much as trying to learn how to book somebody into the jail, certified function, even though you had a training officer there with you. Couldn't do anything. Only thing they could basically be was a custodian in the jail because they weren't interacting with inmates or doing anything along that lines. So I guess the scary thing of that now is a DOCC school runs about anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks right now. They're talking about expanding it, but that's about how long it is now. So if you have 1, 2, or 3 people quit your facility and Surrey Community College has just started their DOCC school, it's going to be 6 more weeks before they even talk about running another one. Then it may be 3 weeks to get it organized, to get standards to approve the course being offered. And then after that, it's going to be another 6 weeks before that person hopefully successfully passes a state exam at that point. And then if they don't, then you're back to recycling, trying this over again. So the concern is trying to cover the liability and the staffing inside the facility. Is if you have 3 people walk out, it could be anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks before you may get somebody that's legally allowed to go back in there starting July 1, 2024. So the sheriff at some point, he's evaluating what he wants to request for the budget, But that's something that's going to have to be considered, that we've got 1 year. That's the reason why we're bringing it up now, because you have 1 year that we can still hire into that grace period and get somebody up there working, that certification is not required prior to July 1, 2024. So hopefully we can get where we need to be and have 1 year to work to getting in that direction. But unfortunately, there's a lot of sheriffs that are really struggling with this. You can imagine the western counties and those in the northern coastal areas they're like 6 officers for their whole jail, 5 or 6, and they're really struggling how that's going to work. So we're just trying to give you guys a heads up to get ahead of that. Doesn't really affect the sworn side. There's not the hiring of somebody that's not sworn or BLET certified. That's almost a gone practice. You don't really hear about that much anymore. But the jails, it is a big deal. So you're watching a lot of jail administrators sweat on trying to do this. As you see, the surrounding counties are really hurting on personnel as well. And so the thing that's going to get us is we have to be prepared at this point. When he was talking about the overhires or hiring, I call it pay to play. So you're going to hire somebody and have to send them to jail school. And the problem is these folks can't afford to survive in life without an income source.
Who's behind this and why?
I think
We
Raleigh.
had jail reform stuff.
It is, a lot of this came about with the big omnibus SB 300, and then this was a specific addition that Sheriff Standards pushed, and we, as far as who I don't know, somebody who's, really smart in Raleigh who thought this would be a good idea, who's never been in a jail, never worked in a jail, and probably has never even seen the outside of a jail.
Are they trying to force you to hire a person that's fully certified? I mean, is that the issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's all.
I mean, that's what they're
Too
trying
much
to do.
senior.
Well, see, and with the deputy wise, the sheriff's office has always been able to bring somebody in and without them getting certified for a year. I mean,
Yeah.
with the city police, we can never do that. When we bring somebody in, they gotta be certified. So after the thing in Minneapolis, there was a big uproar with the national training standards, and of course it bled into North Carolina. And the Sheriff's Association, because I followed a little bit of it, and then I just got frustrated and quit doing this stuff. But that's where, we're at now, is the standards have,
Which means it's gonna cost us a bunch of money to hire certified people.
Well, what's scary is that
If you find them.
when they don't know what it's about. Because if I could hire you for 3 months, and you realize this is not for me, I'm not invested in your going to school and all that sort of thing. And there's a safety net there. You're working with X number of other staff members there, so you're being trained, being taught. You've got somebody there to overshadow and see you and train you. At this point here, we're going to be paying somebody who really doesn't understand the concept of the jail. Now, what we currently do is we allow somebody, once they clear the background check, to go up there and sit in the control room and observe what it's about so that they at least get a taste or a feel of what they're asking to step into. But it's definitely going to be a challenge come the 2024 year. And so from working and overseeing the jail for over 10 years, makes me nervous that staffing could become a real problem, and you may continue down the bullets here.
Where is this going to be taught at?
So the community college level.
So Forsyth Tech would have it.
Forsyth Tech, maybe.
At a closed session.
Could we get it added to our local campus here?
Man, I'll tell you, you stealing all my thunder. That is one thing that you would ask to add in one of your.
Yeah, we're really interested
Yeah.
in getting the value out of our local campus. That's why we put that bullet
I will
on
say
there.
that, so Sheriff Kimbrough has decided to do a few things in Forsyth a little differently. As a sheriff, he has that opportunity to do that. So he wants to, or he's talking about running his own DOCC program, which Jay Woods, who oversees the program for Forsyth Tech, been great communication-wise, having this conversation with him. Obviously, they had to have a certain number of students in the classroom to be able to run the class. Forsyth has been a big part of providing that extra number of personnel to be able to host a class. Stokes can't send 6 people at one time. We don't have it. So there's some concern that Forsyth is going to struggle to make the mark if Forsyth Sheriff's Office doesn't send.
Hey, we could offer it to some other surrounding counties though, if it needed,
So
like,
currently, Surrey Community College, as far as the ones surrounding it, Surrey Community College runs a program, Forsyth Tech currently runs a program. Rockingham does not offer the program.
Buckingham and Caswell both could probably maybe participate, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's something we can explore.
But Forsyth, in defense of Jay, Jay is really trying to continue to make sure that program thrives. So we do send him and Jim up in Surrey work great together and stagger the classes to try to help us out so that they're not running at the same time. So we can send one to this one and then immediately Surrey's right behind it with one. And so we're trying to make both schools really successful, but they're working really good together. And so we appreciate that communication with Forsyth Tech, and Jay's really working hard to try to make sure that program succeeds and they're into college level.
Is the state, are they, because it's currently 18, if I remember right, to work in the detention center. That's the minimum wage, right? Is it 20?
The minimum age is 20, just like any
20.
other.
Like, is that what it is right now?
It was 21 and just recently dropped to 20.
Okay, I thought it was 18.
Age, you said?
Okay. Second thing is, how do you, because it kind of tripped something in my head when you were talking about, having a hard time getting detention officers because no one, dreams of being a detention officer, and with, people want to be on the road and stuff like that. So, I mean, is your process that before they, you would put somebody on the road, that they have to go through the jail to work, or?
We've done it both ways. That has been done in the past, and typically what we would do is we've often offered, if there were no openings on the road, but we had an opening in the detention center or in the jail, then yes, we would offer, say, hey, here's your chance for a job, a full-time job. Get your feet wet in the office, get to know this side of it, and then you would have a year. Like for that person, they'd be BLET certified. You'd have a year before you had to send them to jail school. Now that wouldn't be an option. They would have to be jail certified before they went in.
He even loses the option to put a road officer up there that's not certified because he's BLET certified, not DOCC certified.
God, that's crazy.
Making my head spin.
So I'm not certified. Come July 1st of 24, I would not be certified to do anything inside the jail.
Wow.
As the sheriff, I have it's a little. I'm just saying, if I were, we have plenty of deputies with however much experience, and they would not be.
Maybe especially my good friend Rick, he's going to have a heart attack when I'm telling this, but I'm just going to be honest with you. The current trend is, and around our surrounding area, is recruiting for your jail is just as much of a top priority as recruiting for people on the road. And what that equates to is starting salary is the same for your detention center as it is for the road.
So that is the way it was here for years and years, and the salary study separated them when that was implemented.
It's changed. That's not current.
I do know surrounding counties. I think Forsyth just did that.
Guilford's did it.
Okay.
Rockingham is getting ready to do it, I think.
I agree. I think because, the argument in the past is, well, it's two different functions, but I think the market also plays into that where you're having, so right now, I think currently with our vacancies that we have in the office, we have more in the jail than we do on our sworn side. So, yeah, I think the market might dictate.
Just can't. You're not, I know it's.
Well, it goes back to, and it's kind of a bullet point that we had here, it goes back to the renting of the beds. Renting of the beds is only available if the staffing's there to adequately provide the security needed and the safety of the inmates and the safety of the staff that's there. So obviously, if the staffing continues to reduce, then we have to reduce the population to reduce the liability to the county and the safety to the staff and also the safety of the inmates that we're required to provide as well. So we're doing all we can. We make the payment with no problem. We bring some surplus into the county as well with no problem. But the amount of surplus we bring to the county is not as much as we would like because the staffing's low. Especially, I got 2 out with surgery right now. I've got 2 that's tested positive for COVID, plus the vacancies that I've got. So those are all challenges, and in the counties, your jail employees are wore out, but they are willing to come in on their days off. I came in at 7 o'clock this morning to make sure we had adequate staffing because I got one come with COVID. So I stayed there till 8:30 this morning until some other folks came in. Last night we had somebody come in, cover half a shift, and somebody else covered a half the shift because the COVID has got us. And like I said, 2 knee surgeries they were not job related; they were just personal surgeries that had to be done.
Long term, we've got to optimize that revenue and try to run it up by, because
That's the
that's a
goal.
really good business we're in there.
It is. So
From a
we-
business perspective, if you can make it all work and generate a lot of revenue,
We have the bed space to do
yeah,
quite a
maybe
bit.
even add more bed space down the road sometime.
Yeah, I mean, the bed space we have right now, we're not utilizing.
What's
just
your
because of
average
staff.
daily limit for prisoners?
Inmates, we're housing average 100 at this point. That fluctuates depending on if Superior Court's going on or whatever.
Take about 160, right, or something like that.
56?
156 is max capacity. When we were doing really well with the numbers, we were averaging around 130 because you do have to prepare for court influx. You do have to make sure those beds are available for what we refer to as the writs coming in for the courts that are in the prisons and other jails and things like that. So you do have to make sure that there's enough adequate space to bring in those and then what the road delivers. But we were averaging around 130 right now. We're probably averaging around 100 right now.
But
Just
long
because-
term, you look at federal prisoners again at some point.
Potentially, but honestly, I would prefer to do in-state. It's simpler.
I just thought they paid a lot. I thought they.
What's the federal rate now?
Yeah, they
You get
push
to
around
set your rate.
55.
You get to set your rate. It's $90, whatever, a prisoner per day
We
or
were
something
set,
like that.
we were at 45 with them. They offered 55 as the most that they would go for us.
All Danny Rogers in Guilford, they just set the new rate.
But federal inmates bring a whole slew of other liability question issues where SMCP and renting out to other county jails.
I would much prefer
It's easier to deal with.
help out my fellow sheriffs. And we
Yeah,
can also
that's fine.
negotiate.
I mean,
Yeah, I was just saying, if there's
Yeah, that's
extra
fine.
capacity
That's
at
what
the
you
top,
wanna do. Yeah, I'm just,
just cream on the crop if you could do it
Is
sometime.
your one hurdle of not getting up to back up is just staffing? You don't have the staff to
Correct. And some of that is sickness and things that you can't, but it also goes back, in the jail, we're in the same position we are on the road. The number of positions and people we have filling those positions is just exactly what we need. So if somebody's sick, we're one person down.
yeah.
And so how do you address that? Because, again, I'll be completely honest, I have vacancies now, and we're trying to fill them. So, we need more than what we have, but we also have vacancies, and it's trying to find that happy medium. If that's salaries, if that's the $1 million question, I guess.
how do you recruit?
So I'll let you.
So fortunately, right now, Captain Dalton is assigned the task of trying to work applications to get people and calling. We currently have it posted on Indeed. We do get a good response from that. We've occasionally on our Facebook page as well as it's on the county's website as well. So we are doing that. At the moment, we have actually 3 applicants that live in Stokes County that we're processing. With the psychological testing that's required now, it's about a 2-week lead time because of the mandate that came down that every agency has to do it now. So those organizations are now having to experience, I guess, more influx of people trying to get that. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel for what we're trying to fill right now. It's just trying to hook them. It's really trying to get them when they're here to want to stay. And so the challenge is trying to hire enough staff to get there because the staff that's currently working is tired. And so their attitudes are a little more challenging just because they're working extra hours, they're coming on their days off, they're doing this, they're doing that. And so I think as we get that staffing back up and then you see the staff is adequately there, you're going to see the demeanors change and it's going to be better. And I think you're going to retain those folks that we're working to retain. But trying to stay local in the county is a big deal. If I'm hiring from Low Gap, Surrey, Mount Airy, whatever, and Surrey's looking for detention officers, once you get your training, then why would I drive 40 minutes down here when I can drive 15 minutes to get to that facility and do the same thing? And so we're really working in targeting local in the county here, trying to work those applications first, give those priorities. Not that anything's wrong with someone outside, but obviously we want people bought into our county.
Indeed is a national program, right?
It is. It
Indeed.
is. So I get them from New York and things like that.
Yeah, so they could move here. You could get people
Correct.
to move here off of that.
Correct.
Currently, until they have to be
Anybody done
pre-certified.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so then once that certification requirement comes in, what's our vision, how we would recruit there is, I mean, I still think you could do the same thing if we use overhires or
Yeah.
positions. If we have a vacant position, and we might could do that, but also it'd be coordinating with our local schools to be able to go in and recruit just like we currently do with BLET. But again, we're all the agencies are fishing in the same pond. So.
I mean, what I would recommend is just take a look at, what is, in terms of marketing. So, I mean, even if you just, want to, and I agree, trying to recruit somebody from, we learned that the hard way in Fayetteville. We didn't, initially we went far away to try to recruit, to come in as laterals. And we were successful with some, but overall it wasn't worth the overall money. But, you can find your circle of a region or something, but you're going to have to market the sheriff's office. And if we're marketing detention, then you need to have a brand, and then we need to be able to, where everything is computerized, of course, today, but it's got to be something to where it attracts them to here because you want to keep them. I mean, everyone's different in life, but I'll just tell you, there's a lot of burned out detention officers and police officers in larger cities. People would love to live up here, but again, they've got to make a decent wage. And it's a different, and there's dangers up here, which your call for service volume is low. But I'll tell you what the biggest factor is up here, and that's the public supports y'all. That ain't so. Going 2 hours this way and 2 hours that way.
45 minutes that way.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
We are very
So
blessed in this
the
county.
big, you got the big. It's a larger picture, and I would just, y'all are y'all are professionals. That's your office, but I would just, because that's what people are doing right now. They're marketing, and just my friends that are still in the police world, and even my son when he comes up here and he sees things or sees something in the paper, and he's, man, I wish I could take a pay cut to come up here.
Say, tell your son he's one of those guys that openings that means have to put him in.
I think part of that marketing, first thing like getting air cards and getting everybody on the internet.
Yeah.
We've got good cars with our
Yes,
leasing
absolutely.
program. We got good equipment. We got a lot of things that if you advertise them, that would help. At least people know they're coming. Gonna have what they need to work with and
When
things like that.
I came to the board a few months ago and asked for the pay increases, and two of you were on the board at that time, that was one of the questions that you all posed to me was, what else can we do? You can, money, is great, but what else are we doing? And that's why I'm very proud of the investments in equipment we've made. I mean, we brought all new vests. We have the best vehicles, the best equipped vehicles we've ever had. The technology, even though we're talking about some of the, I think, shortfalls that we have right now, it's better than it has been. I mean, we're making at least some advances. And so I think you're right. I think it's a good thing to sit down and try to market some of those things.
We might need another session with them. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
I got Jason's mobile. You want me to call him and tell him not to show up?
I was starting to message him a while ago and tell him to hold off, and I wasn't sure. I didn't want to.
I don't have a whole lot more, and I'll try to just run through them fairly quickly, and please stop me at any time if we need to run
ahead.
over.
Go ahead.
I've
We
got the
run
rest-
over a little bit. We started 5 minutes late.
Okay.
So.
Well, I've got the rest of the day to
Then
be
we'll do.
here.
Is it okay to do the closed session when we do the other closed session?
Honestly, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay,
Yeah,
today.
not today, no.
We'll
It's-
do it then.
yeah.
On whatever we need.
And
to.
it may not need to anyway.
Okay.
I'll evaluate. I'd already talked about potentially the new RMS system. Just some things as we we go through here, what's it all come down to? How much does it cost, right? And I told you I don't have finalized numbers for the budget now. But I did want to highlight some of the things that we've done this year, in the last 2 years, since I took office, to try to lower that burden on the county, things that we've used, funding that basically we could have used for, I guess, just about whatever we wanted to within reason and within the law, but things that we did specifically to try to take the burden off the county. Last year, we spent about 50 grand to buy all new, the vests, the outer carriers that the deputies are wearing now. I don't know if you've seen them. That's something they're load bearing on the shoulders instead on the hips, cut down on back problems. In the future, it's something a lot of other agencies are going to. It's something our deputies asked for, and we were able to do that for them. And I think that goes back to the recruiting. You know, it's something that we're keeping with the times. Also, we've purchased new pistols, rifles, shotguns. We made some investments in our drug operation equipment, some surveillance equipment and things through them. Bought how many Alka sensors? Six different Alka sensors that are dispersed. Flashlights for all of our sort of smaller flashlights for all of our deputies to have in their carriers. Used quite a bit for DARE and promoting DARE. This is a program, I don't know if y'all have had the opportunity to go to a DARE graduation.
I did last week, or
Yeah.
earlier last Thursday.
Right. You know, it's really exciting when you have kids who are excited about being drug-free. I mean, and they talk about it. And, you know, the numbers, the statistics that show what DARE has done over the years, I think it's a worthwhile program. I think it's worth investing in. And we've tried to make some strides to do that. There's some other things, some funding that we understand that we're going to have coming in that we're going to try to increase even some more equipment, try to update some of the stuff that we've had, maybe some stuff that's getting older, just replacing that instead of putting it back in the county cycle. At some point, we may have to put it back in the county cycle, but if I've got the funding now, if I can try to alleviate some of that pressure off of you guys, that is something we want to do. Some of the potential savings that we've had, he and I were talking about this. If we had adequate staffing, we are still currently utilizing overtime pay in the jail. We are not on the road currently. We did for a short period of time, but we are still in the jail. So again, with that adequate staffing, you're cutting down on the overtime. Again, you're paying here, but still, you would ask specifically about that. Also being able to reduce part-time wages. That is something that in the past we've had quite a bit of success with utilizing retired part-time reserve deputies. That pool is shrinking, just to be quite honest with you. We don't have the same pool that we used to, whether that be for age or just disinterest in the profession or whatever. And so that's just a few things that we have. And let me go over one thing that was brought to my attention. Currently with and this may be more for you and they can weigh in, with A&E, with the way that we're plugging in stuff this is our time card system. I know just our office, and I don't know about the other county departments, just in our office, we're spending approximately 20 hours a month in administrative time just to basically redundantly do the same thing 3 times. This person punches it in, then their supervisor has to punch it in, and then ultimately the senior staff punches it in.
Paper to electronic.
Yeah. In addition to turning in a paper timesheet, and so that is just I don't know what's a possibility looking forward. I don't know if
It
that's
needs
something
to change.
Yeah.
Again.
And again, I know that's not my decision to do this.
In 2015, when I retired,
Yeah.
if you're a patrol officer, on your phone, pull it up, again, I'm on duty, of course, he'll see you in roll call, but he'll approve it, and then the supervisor's got everything is just one, I was in 2015, so I mean, I don't know what the
I feel your
goal
pain
is.
on that.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's a horror.
We're going to work to resolve that.
I hope that some of this implementation of
Promise,
finance
maybe?
software and all that will
Yeah,
address
yeah,
some of that.
yeah, that's it,
Even
yeah.
on my end, with
Yeah.
just approving department heads and some supervisors, it
Almost,
takes
yeah.
forever
So,
towards the end of the pay
dark
now,
ages.
the way it works, to have to like,
Ages.
overtime to prevent deception.
Yeah.
You know, touch every person over
Yeah.
and over again, every day.
And manually
Which that
key in
goes
pay
back
destinations.
to all that paperwork HR shows.
Yeah, that's
that they
crazy.
have
Yeah,
to do.
it's a crazy system.
That should get fixed with our new
Check on
finance.
Cronus
manager.
software.
Well, what the finance director was talking to you about the implementation of new software,
Uh-huh.
all that software and different things are tied together somewhat. We could look at something that would go along with that finance software that would be a better than the A&E. The A&E system is just.
A&E's part of the finance
It
software,
is,
right?
but
Yes.
some parts of it won't be upgraded by this upgrade that they're doing. I'm not sure exactly. That's something that Lisa and Tracy can talk more about when they have their session on it.
Yeah, that's been an issue, A&E, for,
A&E is just a
we need to look at that, across the board, not just for sheriffs.
thorn in everybody's side.
Do you think it would matter if your employees got paid twice a month instead of once a month?
I know they would appreciate it, they would like it. I mean, that is something that I would say over the last, somehow that rumor got started that was a possibility sometime in the,
Right.
a few months back, and I would say I get asked weekly if that's still gonna happen.
Well, I think when we get this new payroll software, that's something we want, or at least I had mentioned to them about looking into the possibility of it.
And I'll be honest,
Yeah,
13
we-
times a year is kind of odd when you're trying to monthly budget, you know.
it is, yeah.
But
Yeah.
every 2 weeks, yeah.
Well,
I
it
can
probably
just-
helped your
Craziest
recruiting.
thing I've heard.
I think you
Yeah.
could, yeah.
It does.
It's a
We've had
different
that
time of the
question
month
several
every
times when
month,
somebody
too.
says
It's
gonna be
like-
5 weeks.
Monthly went
Because
out
it's every,
with the stone
it's every
tablets.
4 weeks, unlike the school system who gets paid on the last Friday of the month. You can kind of plan that, but our schedule's every 4 weeks.
I've never seen
Sometimes
anything like
13
it.
times, and it doesn't ever hit at the same.
A new hire
exact-
has to, a new hire has to wait 5 weeks to get paid.
Needs to
At the beginning of
change.
the thing, and they're like, I don't know financially if I can get that far
Oh, yeah.
without a paycheck, because the 4 weeks plus the week behind that you get to pay, so it's 5 weeks if you start at the beginning of the pay
Just
period.
need to look at
Yeah,
that
we-
as part of our
we're-
software upgrade, you know?
Tell them that the rumor is that we're looking to
Working on it.
hopefully make that happen
Thank you very
eventually.
much.
Hey, Ronnie, have you got any comments? We've been jabbering away here. Have you got any comments or thoughts you want to make?
Well, I've learned a lot in the last 30 minutes, and I appreciate Julie and Eric. Certainly, this deal coming up here in 24, I think Eric said on the jail as far as the new requirements, I think that's, man, I would hate to be there trying to when they go through that. I like the idea that was just thrown out by 3 or 4 of you about the possibility of getting paid every 2 weeks, because I can just be upfront and say, as an educator, we got paid once a month. And once a month, you better know how to budget your finances. And not only that, the worst was when you got paid in the middle of December and you didn't get paid again until the end of January. You always wondered, is that ever going to get here? When are we going to get paid again? And so I like the idea of every 2 weeks. I can certainly support that. And, you know, our whole idea that we did with Julie and Eric is we want our people. We have to work hard to recruit with the salary sometimes, so we wanted our people to have the best equipment possible. So Joy has said that has helped, and that makes me feel good that we went ahead and did that. I guess one thing, I want to ask a question, Joy, and I know y'all probably break things down, and this is not a personnel issue, and it's not anything that I think can be confidential, that I can't ask you this. But you know, you can't turn the TV on today on the news channel without them talking about fentanyl coming in through the southern border. And can you tell me that, have we had a huge increase in Stokes County dealing with fentanyl or drugs in general?
Yeah, sure. We've definitely seen an increase. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, we've definitely seen an increase specifically in fentanyl. We've seen fentanyl mixed with other drugs, cocaine, meth, which has been sort of interesting. But I'm going to brag on my guys. My my Vice Narcotics, we call them our Special Investigations Division, they work tirelessly. We just recently purchased a new K9, and he's been doing excellent work. And so I'm really proud of the work we're doing. And I've mentioned this several times, but I'll keep beating the dead horse because I love saying it. Anytime we try to get drug dealers to come to Stokes County to set them up, they say, I ain't coming to Stokes County, you get busted up there. So.
Well, that's good. And I know your situation you're talking about as far as your manpower and somebody being out and you being shorthanded. And I know that I just want to ask this is when you do your budget and sit down with Shannon and Amber, anything as far as extra personnel you need, make sure you just make a jot out to the side of the rationale behind it. So when it comes to us during budget session, we'll know exactly the reason you're needing that, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. You guys have a comment?
I had a couple, one thing that, I think that would help, especially with the Spillman thing, with this air cards in the car and stuff, is what I would like to see if we could implement it in this next budget cycle is a dedicated IT person to public safety that could be shared with the EMS, the jail, the fire marshal's office, communications. And because I think what y'all do is kind of a niche specialty IT stuff that maybe needs somebody that knows about that and has some training in that area. I would like to see that happen if we could make that work. Because I know we are shorthanded and have been in IT, and that position's been open for a while, but I don't know if we'll end up filling that position or transition that position into something like I just mentioned. Can you just briefly tell me how it works when an inmate comes in that needs to detox?
So
I've had people ask me, and I don't know.
So just kind of quickly, I guess, not want to make it too long, but with the jail expansion, it was really a tremendous help. So we had the ability to rededicate some of the housing units that existed into what we refer to as the quarantine unit. And so we have the medical staffing there that's there for 12 hours a day. Anybody that comes in immediately is evaluated, determine what they need, what's going on. We ask them medical questions. There's a whole screening process there. Obviously, they have to be truthful with us to a certain extent. We do try to explain to them, we're not looking for charges here. We're looking for taking care of you at this point. What have you done? Give us an honest answer kind of thing. At that point, they go to the quarantine unit there. They stay there because of the COVID stuff and bronchitis and everything else. That's hard to get out of the jail once it's in there, so we make sure that they stay there in those quarantine units. Then the medical staff meets within either that day or the next day whenever they're back into that office immediately to determine what's going on with them. They have that same interview process, and then they start a detox protocol as written per their protocols per the contracted medical provider at that point. So they follow their protocols when it comes to all the medical stuff. Only thing we do then at that point is continue to either increase the number of times that we monitor the person based off where they're at. And so sometimes we put people on a 10-minute watch. Every 10 minutes we're going to go out there and see them and talk to them and things like that if they're high risk. And then if the nurse clears them and says, hey, they're good to go, then we go back to what the standard is for the state, making those rounds, and then start to transition them to a regular housing unit based off what they're in the jail for, their charges and stuff, things like that.
So are we doing any MAT therapy in the jails right now, or
You're not.
with the health department hiring a physician that's MAT certified, do you think that's something that in the future we should look to try to implement there, or maybe?
So that's something, and I've had a lot of discussions with other sheriffs about that, because we're the ones who maintain the county jail, and that is something absolutely we're evaluating to see. There's I'll be honest, there's pros, cons.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what's best, not only for our jail, the facility that we have, the way it's set up, and also the number and the type of addictions or whatever that we're seeing in the volume.
My concern with that is this, that we know the statistics of when people are released and how they overdose almost immediately a lot of times. And I think maybe the MAT therapy, which is the medical assisted therapy like Suboxone and that kind of thing, could maybe help that situation. Maybe if and maybe it's something pre-release they could, if they are along with their probation officer. And that leads me into a segue into this opioid settlement money and how we could spend that money as a county that would help what you're seeing, the problems that you're seeing, which would be like the interactions I know your officers are having with these substance abuse addicted people that, and I'll just be honest, my nephew's one of them. I mean, just recently, he was out of control, fentanyl, meth, mixing it together. Parents had to call, and get somebody to come to the house. He hadn't broken any laws. But what do you do with them when they're totally out of control and you're scared for their safety? You're kind of scared for your own safety. And, you can't really take them to jail because they haven't broken any laws yet, or they're so out of control you wouldn't want to take them to your jail. But you take them to the hospital, they're not going to keep them either. And so what I'm seeing is a big problem with what do you do with these people. Maybe they want to get help, maybe they don't, I mean, you can't ever tell when they're in that condition. So my thing is, how could we spend that money that could obviously make a dent in that problem?
So specifically, two things I want to address along that. One thing that we have, regardless of MAT, whether or not that's implemented or not, one thing that we have looked at is utilizing a position basically as sort of we call it like a release coordinator position. Someone, when you're getting ready to get out of jail, I'm just speaking about inmates in our jail, when you're going to be released in 2 weeks, you're going to be released in a month, whatever that time frame might be. Someone who comes in, again, offers. We can't make them do anything, but at least offers, hey, what's your plan? What are you going to do when you get out? Are you going to, who are you going to live with? Do you have a job lined up? Do you have
No, I
such
know,
and
like
such?
they do that in prison.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've kicked around that idea of bringing that to here to try to help somebody get on a path, hey, instead of us necessarily offering the, whether it be Narcotics Anonymous or any kind of opioid support group, is it to try to help them just, if nothing else, line them up. Hey, look, I've got these 3 different organizations who you might could go stay with. It might be in-house treatment.
There's
or
nothing in
activity.
county.
No, there's nothing here. You're right.
Include for SciTech in that discussion as well, Sally,
Okay.
about, what they're going to do next and what training they might need or
Okay.
something like that. I think she'd be willing to jump right in on that.
Okay, and one thing I did fail to mention earlier that I do want to just bring to your attention so that you know it's coming up, and this is also for Amber and Shannon, our medical bills in the jail because of addiction they're going up. They've continued to rise, and I guess you could also say medical costs just in general have risen. And so when it comes budget time, I think you're going to see an increase in that line item specifically. Basically, we have a policy through our health provider up to a certain cap, right? That they cover everything. Our premium basically covers up to that cap. We're only 6 months into the budget, and we're getting pretty close to that cap already. So what happens at the end of that is they turn around and bill the county. So I just want you to be prepared for that. Once it goes over that, your deductible basically, once it goes over that, they're gonna start billing the county.
What number-wise, what are you at right now? I'm not the percentage, but you know about the actual.
Yeah, so actually is this from July?
Yeah, 2022, yeah.
From July, and so the company that we go through, they scrub the bill. They take out all the, whatever that magic, they wave their wand and it cuts the bill down, right? So we've actually been billed almost $85,000 this year. We've only been invoiced for $27,800, so just at $28,000. But our threshold is $35,000. And so we're 6 months in, we're at 28 out of 35.
But do you track the number of prisoners too that's related to the bill, or are you just looking at the total bill?
That's total.
It breaks down per inmate that goes. The report will break it down.
I thought you meant just these numbers. You mean
So Southern Health Partners, who we contract with, sends me every month what they have been billed, the inmate's name, and what organization was billed, what the initial bill was, what they were able to negotiate it to, and then what the final payment is. So that's how come we have these numbers
You're
here.
dealing with like a broker, somebody that's trying to keep the costs down as
scrubbed
low as possible, dealing
$57,000.
with whatever provider for the type of the treatment, right?
We work with
Prevent.
LifeBright, we work with Forsyth and Baptist,
That's
and then of
not all.
course, we work with Maven Made for Dentistry Services. They're awesome to work with us down there as well. So this little hospital is tremendous for the jail with somebody that has a chest pains, high blood pressure, diabetic issue coming in, things like that. That hospital handles a lot of that here locally. It's a mile up the road for us. We can, again, taking somebody off the floor, because a jailer has to be with them, so if you're already short-staffed, either myself, my lieutenant, or somebody's getting a phone call saying, hey, I got this many people, can you come help? Or we're trying to find arrangements. That little hospital out here, as far as the jail stuff, has been great for what they can handle. But then EMS has been great to also, when we call them, they're Johnny on the spot, to help us out and try to determine what's the best course of action to go, and then transport them to the appropriate place. But EMS has been really good to work with as well.
We need to make sure that your activity with the hospital gets incorporated into our feasibility study we're doing. I'll try to remember to do that, or get with you to do that. Still doing pretrial release to get people out when it makes sense, right?
When it's appropriate. Again, the courts make that ultimate decision whether or not. But that program has
Saves
been a
medical
really great program for us over the years. And, I think.
Along the same lines, do y'all have monitors, TPS tracking things that you can put on? So like if you do get a prisoner, that's diabetic or whatever kind of medical trauma they need, that you can go in front of a judge and get them released on a monitor.
But we don't do it. So we don't have that locally in the jail, that option. Pretrial sets up their program for whatever their monitoring process is if we utilize them. So it's a tough decision to make, medical versus safety of public. So you really have to evaluate the charges, how many times they failed to appear, are they coming to court like they're supposed to, was there victims involved in this matter? And so very rarely do we get somebody out. We utilize central prison safekeeping as much as we can when there's somebody medically high risk. But again, there's a fee associated with that. The state's going to bill the local jurisdiction for utilizing their services. There are times we are able to evaluate that based off a driving while license revoked.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter, you don't have GPS anyway, so it doesn't matter, okay.
There is a program out there that domestic violence, the courts have for domestic violence offenders, but as far as that's the only thing that they do.
Probation uses it, for post-conviction, but.
Guys, got anything else for today?
Thank y'all for your time. I'm sorry we went over a little bit.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, we appreciate you, because, you're an elected official, y'all didn't have to come in here, but we appreciate you coming, and I think it kind of gives everybody just a sense of kind of where we're at, but, we probably can't fix everything in 1 year, but I think that we can put you on the right path, and then we incorporate steps to start doing stuff, but I think that, the air cards, we got to get the air cards, and you've got to get, mobile reporting done. And really, even with your detectives, I don't know if they have laptops or anything, but they should have the ability, because to me, you don't want, sometimes people get, especially they get accustomed to their desk. And so then, they're out on the scene somewhere, and then they just take notes, and then they want to come back and replug everything in. And of course, with Discovery, the more handwriting you're putting on your on your piece of paper and everything, that's got to be included in Discovery. So I think there's probably a way to capture a lot of efficiency just with technology.
That's what we're going after.
Yeah.
Anything else?
All right, that'll do it.
Thank y'all so much, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I'll just keep going. Y'all want to keep going since we're behind a little?
I think she's got another meeting.
Sonia, you gotta leave sometime for other meeting.
Well, I'm
What time we
supposed to
got?
be over at 2. I just need to leave about 5 till 2.
5 till 2?
Yeah.
It should be. We'll go as quick as we can.
Hey.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, I just need to go over there and get my food and so I can eat before my other meeting.
It's time for Ronnie.
Yeah. Honey can eat. Well,
I wonder if he thought we were done.
I probably did. I
What?
Ronnie,
think Mendenhall checked out.
call him back.
Main thing is that one microphone works and this one doesn't, so if anybody that's talking, if you kind of lean toward that mic that Jason's standing in front of.
I think he may have already gone. Commissioner Mendenhall messaged me and said that he was gonna have to hang up, I believe. Are you still there?
Oh, he hung
No, he
up.
hung up.
He had messaged me and said, I didn't know.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason, you can just go ahead and get started. You've probably seen what we're doing here enough to know what the next step is.
Okay.
And I appreciate the Board of Elections folks showing up today, too. We invited all our boards that were applicable, and I think you guys are the first one we've done that had a board, so we're glad you came. Did you just fire away and do what all you want to present, and then we'll do questions and answers
Okay,
back and
sure.
forth at the end? And we kind of cheated you on your time, so take whatever you need, whatever
Okay.
time you need of the hour.
No problem. So in terms of the mission of the Stokes County Board of Elections, and I gave you a printout that details the mission and organization and some other statistics. Not too close to the mic or?
You're good.
Okay, fine.
You're good.
I'm not, I think I'm far enough away. Just start right off the top. The mission, the Stokes County Board of Elections is committed to securing the fundamental right to vote by administering free and fair elections for the citizens of Stokes County in accordance with state and federal election laws. The board is responsible for the conduct of all elections in Stokes County, including special municipal, county, state, and federal elections. Voter registration and maintenance of current voter records are core components of the office. Many other duties associated with the elections administration process are performed as well. I also feel like my own personal mission is to try to conduct an election without getting my name in the paper or ending up on the 6 o'clock news. That's
Worthy
I'm
goal.
going to put that under goals as well. In terms of organization, the board is composed of 5 members. So 4 members are appointed by the State Board of Elections. 1 member, the chair, is appointed by the county board. 3 of the members I'll introduce them. So Mike Pell is the chair, Jack Johnson is a board member, and then David Burge is the secretary of the board. And the sort of a long and winding process, but it begins by the county's political parties submit recommendations to the state parties. So it's a bipartisan board. In most instances, whoever the county political parties recommend to be the board members are ultimately selected or appointed by the State Board of Elections. So the board employs a director and staff, so it's a 2-person full-time office, myself and a deputy director. We manage the office and conduct elections. Then there are a number of other tasks afforded by law that are outlined there. Appointing precinct officials, setting precinct lines, establishing early voting sites and polling places, conducting hearings, and they kind of a catch-all, they review and oversee other aspects of the elections administration. The next part, I detailed the information regarding the state Board of Elections. So North Carolina has a centralized, top-down approach to elections. So a lot of the policies that we follow, of course, it begins with state law and administrative code and federal law, but also it's a great deal to do with the policies from the State Board of Elections. The idea being, when I first started here many years ago, the key word was uniformity. So the idea is that when you go to vote, you want your experience, whether you're in Fayetteville or you go to the voting site in Danbury, might have more voters in Fayetteville than Danbury, but regardless, you want your voting experience to be the same, either early voting or election day or by mail or what have you. So the State Board of Elections consists of 5 members, again, a bipartisan board. They serve a 4-year term. Those appointments are made by the governor and also the state chairs of the 2 political parties having the highest number of registered voters in the state make those recommendations. This next page here, I noted here is the county government department. Of course, we also follow decisions made by the county government administration. So I've said over the years I have basically 3 sets of bosses: the county administration, the county board members, and then the State Board of Elections. And then you see some facts and figures having to do with elections and registration here. The number of voters, we're right now 31,763. 18 election day polling places, 3 early voting sites, and then how many machines we deploy at each site. Of course, as you all know, we do use the hand-marked paper ballots used by voters. They fill in the ovals. It's the way I guess it's probably always been like that here, and it seems to be a pretty simple and straightforward process for most voters, and that's the machines that we bought a few years ago. And on election day, we'll have approximately 115 election day poll workers, and then we'll have about 20 to 25 early voting workers. Again, 2 full-time staff, a couple of part-time staffers who work as needed, and the 5 board members. The last note there, elections administration is regarded as critical infrastructure by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, an agency of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So one of those changes, that when I first started, cybersecurity, security in general wasn't as prevalent, or probably was needed, but it wasn't the hot button issue maybe the way that it is now. The next couple of pages were just, I found them interesting and thought you might too. It's just basically a breakdown of voter turnout percentage. The last few elections, for the countywide elections, last several elections, as you can see, with the exception of that first primary in 2014, Stokes County has kind of outpaced the state by a little bit. And then you again see sort of the cyclical nature of elections to some degree in terms of turnout. Presidential, of course, you're going to have a higher turnout. The 2020 general, we had 81%, which is was a very big number. And then even the last couple of midterms, we've been over 50%, which I think is unusual historically speaking. So that's good. The more voters, the better, that we like to see. So yeah, and the next page does show some trends in terms of ballots cast by election. It's broken down by the different ways a person votes. And again, you can see if you look at 2020 general, 2022, basically you can sort of, what I find interesting myself is if you look at the 2022 general, an election day in Stokes County, we still had more voters there than we did during the entirety of early voting. So I think people in Stokes County kind of like the tradition of election day. I do too. As a person just interested in elections, I like that. The elections administrator in me kind of likes if you vote early, it's sort of, there's not as much tension or stress on election day. But anyway, okay. Yeah, so that's our mission and some additional numbers there. And I'm just going down the topics for discussion, and certainly if you have anything to interject at any point, I'm all ears. So,
Yeah, we'll do that.
in terms of the budget, the next annual budget submission, so our budgets tend to be cyclical. So the budget that we're going to be entering into come July, it has the municipal and then the first primary, and then we budget for the second primary in the event that we do need a second primary. So even though the turnout for those elections isn't what we see in a general election, the budget tends to be higher. Just by comparison, I pulled the numbers or looked at my budget request from 2018-19, it was about $197,000. And then 2019, 2020, when you take out the voting machines that we purchased in that budget, if you took that out, it'd be about $234,000. So, and the municipal election will run the towns about maybe a total of $8,000 or so, and we run the elections for them, they reimburse us. So, we typically don't have a lot of big budget requests. We did have the voting machines that we purchased in 2019. That was obviously a big one. And we are looking, and that's a discussion I'll be having with my board members at our next meeting. We want to start looking at we have the optical scan tabulators, and then we have the machine that is designed for individuals with disabilities. So when we made the purchase in 2019 with the new tabulators, we got new tabulators, but we kept the old machines that are dedicated for those with disabilities. So that was a discussion I was looking to have with my board to see where we're at with that. That's at the very least, it's a long-term goal to get those new machines, but do we want to make it long-term or short-term? So, okay. The next question in terms of the adequacy of training in your organization. So, and again, a lot of that stems or comes from the State Board of Elections. So we have webinars every couple of weeks. We have one today. And the state executive director gives an overview of where things are at from their end of things. There are some technical processes that each county does that they review. Legal updates, cybersecurity, presentations, things of that nature. The training conferences, so the staff and the board and myself, we go to training conferences, again, put on by the State Board of Elections. They occur before an election. So as a director, I'm required to attend. It's more optional for others, but we all tend to go. And they're two-day conference. They're good. It's kind of a ballroom setting, and we break out into smaller groups. And you know, it's good to be around other staff and directors, and you know, you find out. You know, it's one of those. Sometimes you find
Ocean View.
What's that? Yeah.
Ocean View.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, it's one of those. Sometimes you learn more out in the lobby than you do inside the ballroom. So, we also have a certification program. So I'm a certified elections administrator in North Carolina. So when I did this a long time ago, at that time you had to be in elections for 3 years, and then you had to go through an election, presidential election as part of that 3 years, and then there was a test at the end. I don't know if it's the same now, but made a 95 on the test. I remembered that. So I was looking at it, taking notes.
Well done.
Yeah. And then we have district meetings, which is a gathering of county elections staff and directors, and it's a time we can talk about what's going on, vent our frustrations, things of that nature. So it's kind of a unique job that we have here, so it's sort of nice when you get around people who do the same thing. The next question about succession planning. So it's again, it's a two-person full-time office, myself and the deputy director. So the current deputy director began October of last year, so she kind of hit the ground running. So I don't know if there's a succession plan there per se, but you know.
You're not eligible for retirement.
That's right. I got it. That's right.
Part of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Uh,
Now she's still learning her job before we can kind of get her.
So in terms of personnel, so we did have some turnover last year. So previous to that, the deputy director had been here for 10 years. Last year, we did have 2 new deputies. The first one came and was here about 5 or 6 months, and then pursued something else. I don't know if that's a closed session story. There's really not a story there, quite frankly. It's one that we're familiar.
Better opportunity.
Yeah, that's basically it. So, our personnel obviously again does swell during an election. So we had those poll workers and early voting workers. So that's always a challenge for the board in particular, that they've sort of been conscripted over the years, I guess, to try to recruit new workers. I think my approach has been that I like it when the new poll worker is somebody that somebody knows, because they can sort of vouch for that person, or maybe it's a poll worker who says, I think this one would be a good worker. They only work a day, but it's a very important day. So we want to get that right, and it's a long day, and we want personalities that fit and somebody that will put the work in. And we've been very lucky over the years with really good workers and really good early voting workers. But that's something that I had put down as a possible enhancement or improvement, is trying to find other ways to get poll workers. But and we did branch out some in 2020 with the State Board of Elections had a survey, and we got some new people there who filled that out. Concern over COVID, how many people would want to work, and so we got some good workers out of that. It's the old line, I couldn't do it without you, so I tell the poll workers in training classes, I literally couldn't do it without you. I mean,
What do you pay for, what's the pay for your temporary poll workers an hour?
yeah, we were able in the last budget to increase that, but it ranges from $10 to $12 an hour. They get paid to come to a training class. The chief judges, who are the head of the polling places, get a bonus for basically picking up supplies the day before, a couple of days, and then returning them that evening. So yeah, they don't do it for the money necessarily, but
We just increased that this last election.
I'd be willing I don't know, it's not like, you're doing it every day.
right.
So, if you are starting to have a shortage of qualified people, that maybe we even, look at bumping it up a little bit or something.
They have to have background checks to work at the polls?
No, the workers themselves, no.
The board doesn't require anything like that, or?
No, that's a requirement for, now it's a requirement for staff, myself and the others in the office, but no, not for the poll workers.
Okay.
In terms of goals and priorities, so I had, I think, mentioned previously cross-training. So last year with the vacancy in the deputy director position, I was able to sort of dust off some rust from that, because I helped train the new person, so I kind of refamiliarized myself with some of the ins and outs. It's one of those I knew what was being done, but the little intricacies as went along, that was something that I had to refamiliarize myself with. And as part of that process, again with the 2 new turnover last year, we've sort of gone back through and documented the procedures that the deputy in particular will do. So, of course, the idea being if the new deputy were to leave, or if she had to be out of the office at an inopportune time, somebody else would come in and sort of just be able to, along with my assistants, be able to look at the documentation and pick it up from there. So, and in that regard too, as the new deputy gets going in her position or continues along, it'll have to sort of reverse that and have her be prepared for my position as well. And again, I'd mentioned under goals/priorities, the new voting machines and figuring out where we are with that.
Do you have a cost on one of those?
I know overall.
I mean, just something I thought.
Right. When we had pursued those particular machines a couple of years ago, I guess, I think the total was maybe between 65, total cost for all of them, about 65 to 70,000. I think we had put in maybe for 20 to 23, about I'm going to say about 3,000 apiece. I guess the biggest thing at this point would be, I was going to mention too, as far as what keeps you awake at night, just an election. I don't think there's anything that you guys
That's us
can
too.
do. Yeah.
No runoffs.
Right. So I don't know what assistance can, be provided for that, just generally speaking, just the election. But anyway, I guess the biggest priority now is as we transition to the new building. So Shannon and I guess Glenda and I and the board and Perry, the architect, are going to take a look at that next week. And so we feel, good and optimistic about it. The location, so this, I've moved twice at this point, and each step of the way, I think our site has gotten a little bit better each time. And the place we're at now, I've liked it fine. It's worked well for us, but I don't like change, or I'd probably stay there if I could, but I know that's not that's not feasible. So, but yeah, I think the location, I think maybe some once we get in there and take a look at it, some adjustments that we can make to storage areas. I think Shannon, I remember you at one of the commissioner meeting saying, if you put the voting machines in the vault, they'll be probably the safest they've ever been, right? So,
I don't think that's big enough though, is it?
well, I don't know. I'll have to check it out. So, but it'll be fireproof, so we can put some other stuff in there at the very least, right?
Well, that already has a security system that we can make sure is operable and get that back started again, so you'll actually have a real security system on
Right.
your door entrance and all those things, which, I know now you're in the courthouse, so you're secure, but that will help that too. And then there's a lot of opportunity in there for other additional storage and ways that, when I looked up with Penny the other day, just the first walk through,
Right.
you all have certainly more options and ideas, but a lot of potential for that to be a really, really good office space
Good.
for you all, and give you that meeting space that you were wanting too, with that wide open space in there.
Heard you was going to offer drive-through voting. Is that true?
Yeah.
I mean, we got the perfect opportunity.
I think what we had talked about is if we close that up for storage, and what I've said is, I will lose the joke of being able to say drive-through voting, but otherwise I haven't been able to think of a purpose for that area. So, and you mentioned the security considerations there. There's the Department of Public Safety has a division that goes to elections offices and does assessments. So I was looking at, I've talked with them about that, and they have, I think their recommendation ultimately was we'll go in there and look at it, and they've given me a survey, and I can sort of take a look at it. But like I was saying to her, and we've discussed, I mean, it's a bank building, so there's things there.
Is the security system, does it include cameras also, or?
We'd have to do our own cameras, so that what they had there, they've taken all the equipment and things out of there, so, but yeah, we can look at that as part of getting that tied together with the alarm system, so, for sure. But the parking there is really good, you got a lot more parking availability, I think, than you have now, even not having to compete for spaces here, and it's already ADA compliant, which is nice, and
Even when you have early voting.
right, you got a lot,
It was a lot of traffic.
right,
A lot of traffic coming through, walking through.
you got a lot more parking there, too. I'm excited that's worked out.
It'll be safer and people won't be walking where people are
Correct.
driving.
Right, correct.
Jason, the librarians were here on commissioner meeting, and they really enjoyed early voting. I couldn't believe it.
All
Yeah, King, Danbury, and Won't Cove.
yeah, they like having us, and I'll take it. Yeah.
It kind of shocked me to
Yeah.
hear that comment.
Right. Yeah,
A lot of foot traffic, I think, getting people in there that might not be in the library usually.
right, right. I know the librarian in King has told me before they get a good uptick in the number of people who get library cards. So, yeah, so I think I'm not sure if it was the primary or the general election, but they did their book sale. That little corridor there going to the Shelton Room, they had their books for sale kind of lined up there. So, but I think those are my main points. Really
Any
entertaining.
board members have any comments you want to make? And otherwise, we'll go to some questions right quick.
I support what Jason said.
Okay, Sonia, you want to go first since you got to maybe leave in a
Yeah, I
minute?
may have to slide out here. I've got a DSS board meeting coming up. I've got to go take care of a couple things before that, but I just appreciate y'all coming and your board coming with you, some of your board today, and I think I'm excited about this new building and what that can mean for the Board of Elections, and excited to see that come to fruition. So, and I just appreciate y'all. Your office has always been helpful to me when I ran for office, and been there numerous times now through the years. So I've always appreciated the support and help that I got when I come in. It was always made things easy to take care of, and the service you do for our county. I mean, the elections are so important, and have come under even more scrutiny as of late. And I think, that's one thing I've never felt like we had to worry about in our county was the security of our elections and any type of fraud. I feel like we're in good shape, and thank you for all y'all's work to make that happen and take care of that. So.
Mr. Wood?
I've already asked my questions.
Okay. Mr. Chandler?
The only question I have is just about, if you're having problem with staffing, because it seems like everywhere else in the county, we got a problem with staffing. But I do appreciate, especially, seeing it from the candidate side.
Mm-hmm.
And I know y'all made my life a lot more calmer. Less stress with some of the other stuff, and it's very true that there's no uncertainty here in Stokes County with the way you run the operations. There's no doubt that bad things may be going on because of maybe some inefficiency, or maybe something breaks down at an opportune time, and just to give that perception, it's very professional. And so when the results come in, it's you may not like the results that are coming in, but you're reassured it's the real stuff. So thank you for that.
I think, kind of getting back to that, is the way that Jason and his staff and this board handles what you call the absentee ballots.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no way something with the board that we have, the staff we have,
Yeah.
you'd have to have a totally corrupt.
Yeah, you take your job seriously, and
we take it seriously,
yeah,
but you'd have to have a total corrupt board from A to Z for
Yeah.
anything that's like
Yeah,
that.
and that's good.
Definitely,
Yeah.
we have enough eyes watching that it's
yeah.
not gonna happen.
I think both sides, whatever political party you belong to or don't belong to any political party, that's the main thing. It's just that every vote should count if it's, passed legally.
Also, I would like to say, piggybacking off on what David said, when it comes to the board, it's very fair. I think we all get along very well, and it's very, it's definitely bipartisan. There's not one party doing it at all. It's very equal, and that's why I feel like that, at least in Stokes County, I can't speak for other counties, but at least in Stokes County, the opportunity for fraud is minimal at best. I mean, I really just don't see it here. So.
Jack joined the board last October, so he hit the ground running too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll wrap up by, I would also like to thank Jason and the board for the support you've given us as candidates, with helping us with our reporting and making sure we get that correct, and then also responsiveness when we ask for data and to do analysis and things like that for our campaigns. That's all, it's been very responsive and very, on the mark for what we needed, so we do really appreciate that. On the voting machines, I'll tell you, I support getting the handicap voting machines as soon as possible because, if I'm not mistaken, those other ones are difficult to handle for a lot of our folks. They're heavy and they're really not up to date compared to the option we have with the other ones. So even if you can buy a portion of them at a time, maybe or something, I would probably support that as well. Anything you can do to get the early voting length of time shortened, that would really be nice. I don't know what the process is for doing that. That's legislative, I guess.
Yeah, that's,
Do that, do you?
no, that was a change in state law in 2018. So it used to be that we started here in Danbury the third Thursday before Election Day. So every county office and the elections office in the state had to open at least one site, their office site at that time. And then we had flexibility on, in our case, King and Walnut Cove. Depending on the election, we typically, I would say, we open them the Monday 8 days before Election Day. And then we had shorter hours as well, so they would run for about that Monday through Saturday. But then the summer of 2018, there was a change in state law, which essentially was if you have sites beyond your office site, of course King and Walnut Cove would be, you have to run them starting the same day that you do your office site, and then there are the requirements about the length of the day as well. So back in years ago, we run them like 11 to 6, which is sort of, we found after 6 people really wouldn't come out, and maybe not early in the morning. So, but 2018 that changed, and it required kind of early in the morning to the evening. So that's
I just personally believe that the longer that period of early voting is, the better opportunity it is for people to commit fraud. So that's just a personal opinion that legislatively, I wish they would reduce it.
It was brutal.
Yeah, I'd be fine with me if they just did election day.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
part.
Well, and we do have, speaking to that, so the end of the evening when the supplies are brought back to us, basically the end of voting on, for early voting on a given day. Poll worker brings back that day's voted ballots. It's sealed in a ballot box. We record the seal numbers going out, coming back in, things of that nature. They have paperwork making sure that however many one-stop applications they have that day, does it equal how many ballots were run through the ballot? So we check that. And then we're able in the office to record that person had voted, a given voter had voted that day. So if they were to try to return the next day and vote in King or Danbury or Walnut Cove, that would show up that they had already voted. So that's a little...
Could you just briefly describe, if you do it locally, how the voter record or voter rolls get purged for people that die and move and do things like that need to be taken off the roll? Is that a local function or?
Yeah, so that's part of our software system. So for instance, an individual that passes away, we get a report from Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services. There are a couple of reports that we get from Register of Deeds. Brandon had I've gotten one report from him over time. And he told me there's another report that's now available, and asked would I like that. And I said, it may be duplicative in some ways, but yeah, if there's anyone on there that we have registered that we haven't gotten removed from other means, will you take that list as well? Each of the funeral homes, we've provided a removal form. And so they can include that to the family as part of the packet. And then a near relative or a representative of the estate can remove the voter. So that's deceased. Then voters who have moved, our computer system, if if they moved within the state and registered at a new location, it can pick them up, and then there's another list that pulls that data. The State Board of Elections, if they moved out of state, there's some information that they can provide to us that we use to indicate that they've registered.
Does it work pretty well overall?
Got them everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have, if an individual hasn't voted for a period of time, we have a list maintenance program. We send out a card. If they don't return it to us, they become inactive. This is more than you want to know, but there are
I'm
some.
really interested in this.
Yeah, there are some various steps to, nothing's perfect, of course, but there are means to remove voters who are no longer in Stokes County.
Okay, good. The last thing, the two last things, and we'll wrap up here, is that vault up there that's in the bank, Shannon. I don't know if you guys need vault space or how much you need, or if there may be some need,
Well-
or maybe look at sharing that vault with other departments if
Well, I was
we,
gonna say,
have a need.
after going into the bank, what they actually had was a vault space in one of the rooms there that was not your traditional vault like you see in old banks where it's like built into the building.
Uh-huh.
So they took that vault with them when they left.
Oh, they did? Oh, it's
So
modular,
yes,
huh?
we're gonna look at some other options.
Most of them are now.
Not in the contract.
Oh, that's good. That's
It was
interesting.
probably not, I don't really know. I always just kind of assumed when I went into that bank as a customer that when they went off to the left over there, they were going towards the vault in there.
That's what I thought too.
I think they stored things in that room, but the vault was not in that space. It was in another room, and you can see exactly where it was located, but it was not a built-in vault anyway, which,
Oh, okay.
you know,
I thought it was built in. That's
yeah, I did too.
Last thing I would tell you guys is, I think everybody in your office and your board's doing everything you can to maintain election integrity. But I think every county in this country has people in there that are trying to cheat the system. And that'll cheat if they get the slightest opportunity, or figure out a way to do it. And so anything that we might need to fund for you guys where you could test election integrity or set traps for people that are trying to do it or trying to violate the system or whatever, I would always be in favor of anything toward just ensuring as close to we can get as 100% election integrity. Because, I mean, there's bad stuff going on in other parts of the country, as you're well aware, in this area. These people that can't count their votes for 2 or 3 weeks after an election and all this kind of stuff. And so if there's any little systems or tricks you can use to catch cheaters, I would always ask you to look at that and support it. You guys have anything else? Before we close, one comment I'd like to make is just to compliment all the department heads, including you guys, that we have met with so far on their preparation for these meetings. They have been more than I hoped they would be as far as
We've been impressed.
informing us on what's going on and where we might focus our attention and so forth. So everybody has done a great job of doing that, including you guys. So we appreciate that.
One thing I would like to request is, if you have questions or concerns, keep a line of communication open. I mean, that's the best,
That's the key.
that's the key to all of us, is keeping that line.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're welcome here anytime for a regular meeting. If you guys need to come and talk to us in the public, it's a real advantage when we have that camera on and people can hear all this information that's being discussed and better understand what we're all doing. So or if we can need to do something offline, we do that, but you're welcome anytime. Okay, need to recess again.
Motion to recess and, the
January 31st. at
31st.
Well, January 31st at 9 o'clock, right, a.m. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in recess.